Okay, it has been a while, but let's talk Trump's tax returns and see what's going on here. Let's do a kind of a deep dive, be a little longer of a video. Let's really see what is going on here because you're getting bombarded with a bunch of different numbers and years and information from different news outlets. So let's really dive into some of these articles, some of the numbers, and see what's what. So the first thing I want to highlight here, this is in a New York Times article. I believe that was published yesterday. It came out after the original one that broke the news of his taxes. The ratings of The Apprentice and the advertising dollars it generated quickly pushed him into the unfamiliar position of declaring a positive adjusted gross income on his IRS Form 1040. After netting $11.9 million from the show in the first year, he really hit the jackpot in 2005 with $47.8 million. The tax records show he made so much over those 3 years, he paid a total of $70.1 million in income taxes, later refunded with interest via an aggressive accounting maneuver now under audit. So that is where people are saying there's an IRS audit where if it comes down against him, he will owe the IRS $100 million. Obviously, it's under audit, so they're checking to see if anything fishy was there, if anything illegal that his accounting team did that would warrant them not getting that refund. So there's a huge red flag there. Now, going to the original article that was broke on September 27th, obviously everyone knows he only paid $750 federal income taxes the year he won the presidency, and the first year in the White House he also paid another $750. Now this comes down to, again, him incurring, or at least saying so, that he incurred so many losses from his businesses, so he obviously wouldn't have to pay as much in taxes. Now, to that I say, he was left roughly $400 million from his father. Not all in terms of cash, but I mean in the properties that they own, $400 million worth of assets. And now we know from this article, he's $420 million in debt. I don't know about you, but that's not the best sign of a great businessman, right? Everyone, all his supporters from the beginning were all like, "Oh, he's a great businessman. I voted for him because he's a good businessman." If you were left nearly $400 million in assets from your father, and you're an older man now in your 70s, and you're over $400 million in debt, that's not a great sign of good business, if you ask me. And the big thing about that is we don't know who that debt is currently owed to. Whom does he owe that debt to? That is the question. That and much of that debt the bill comes due in the next 4 years, which would be obviously if he won a second term during his presidency. That's a huge red flag. One of the big things that when you get a government job, in particularly obviously something as high as the president or CIA, FBI, something like that, some sort of government job, they do look at your debt, how much debt you owe, and who you owe it to, because potentially that could be used against you to get you to act or not act a certain way, and they don't want to put their institution in that liability based on the amount of debt you owe and who you owe it to. It can definitely be used as a cudgel against you. So that's a huge red flag for the president of the United States. We don't know who he owes that $421 million to, and we definitely should know who that's owed to. Now, being in debt, $420 million, and being left nearly $400 million in assets really is not the mark of a good businessman. But his net worth is still over $1 billion because he has a lot of properties. He has, hotels. He has golf courses. He has businesses. And while these may be taking losses over the years, they may not be, he may not be pulling out profit. These things may be taking losses. The best thing you want to really look at, though, to get an overall value of the actual hotel, of the actual golf course, you want to look at the net operating income. So the operating income, and then obviously, if it's a building or something like that, you need to know, the real estate value per square foot, surrounding buildings, all that. But that will give you a very clearer picture of how much these values are worth. So while they may be taking losses and incurring losses, and they may not be profitable, they're still of value, right? You just need a buyer to come along and purchase the property or whatever you're selling for X amount of dollars, and you could still obviously make money off that when you walk away. So it looks like this is some really good work here done by Dan Alexander, who is a Trump reporter, follower for Forbes magazine. It seems that looking at all of the basically the financial statements of some of Trump's properties and his golf courses, his hotels, all that, and his business partner Vornado, so where they own majority of stake in a lot of these places, and Trump owns minority stake. Going through these documents and looking through them myself, and then obviously going through what Dan has done here, it appears that he owes in loans he currently has over $1 billion. Now, obviously, not all of that is due in the next 4 years. Like I said, much of the 420 is due in the next 4 years, but it appears he owes over $1 billion worth of loans, and that's a lot of money, obviously. But if you then take the value of his assets, of the properties themselves, it appears that he still has a net worth in the positive of a little over $1 billion. Because if you add up all his assets and how much they're worth, they're over $2 billion. So it appears that he still has a net worth of over $1 billion. What does all this mean? All this means that, again, we need to know who he owes that $420 million to, the debt that's coming up in the next 4 years. That is very, very important. Another interesting tidbit, I will see if I can find this here. He actually paid more taxes I believe it was 2016, to India, the Philippines, and Turkey. So here, this is interesting. When he took office, Mr. Trump said he would pursue no foreign deals as president. Even so, in his first 2 years in the White House, his revenues from abroad totaled $73 million. And while much of that money was from his golf properties in Scotland and Ireland, some came from licensing deals in countries with authoritarian-leaning leaders and thorny geopolitics. For example, $3 million from the Philippines, $2.3 million from India, $1 million from Turkey. Let me see and then here. He reported paying taxes in turn on a number of overseas ventures in 2017. 750 contributed to the operations of the U.S. government, but was dwarfed by 15,598, or his companies paid in Panama 145,400. In India, they paid 156,824. So he actually ended up paying more in taxes to foreign nations. I just find that so funny, so funny. And then before we wrap it up and get into what this means, I also want to mention actually that there are some other aspects of that this article mentions that definitely deserve a little more scrutiny. For instance, there was a $2.2 million write-off that he used on what he's calling a rental property in New York, and it's kind of ambiguous whether that's a rental property. They also wrote off from 2010 to 2016 $26 million in consulting fees. Now, again, it's kind of ambiguous what these consulting fees are, and it deserves a little more digging. Some of those fees were paid to Ivanka Trump. This seems like a workaround to get around accruing the gift tax. And then we know I think it was like $70,000 for hairdressing fees. Now, some of that is potentially a very normal, valid write-off. If he's getting his hair done before he goes on The Apprentice or something like that by hairstylists, that can obviously be written off. You obviously can't write off like personal hair care products or personal hairstyling. So again, it gets kind of ambiguous, but it all deserves a little more scrutiny for sure. The one thing we all can agree on, I think, is that if his net worth is over $1 billion, while he is accruing plenty of losses, and while he was left about $400 million in assets from his father, and he's over $400 million in debt that's coming up in the next few years, it's not a good look. He still, like I said, though, does have a net worth of $1 billion, and for him to be paying $750 in federal income tax is it's a travesty. It really is just a shining white hot light on how terrible the tax code is in this country and how things work. I venture to say that everyone who watches this video has paid more than $750 in income taxes every year of their life. And he, again, has a net worth of over $1 billion and $750 over the 2016, 2017. That's unacceptable. It's completely unacceptable. It's also, like I said, it shows you the problems in our tax system in this country. And the one thing that doesn't square with it, though, is you get a lot of Trump supporters who think he's a man of the people, and he's going to drain the swamp. And part of the swamp is money in politics. Part of the swamp is rich people and the uber elite and billion-dollar corporations not paying their fair share. And here the president is not paying his fair share and trying to find every single loophole he can get to not pay taxes. And yet you think this is the guy that's going to fix this problem. Wrapping it up here, what does it mean? It means he owes $420 million to we don't know who. Much of that is due in the next 4 years while he's president. Could be a massive conflict of interest and national security risk. Definitely worth digging into. There's some accounting wizardry going on that very well may be legal. Deserves a little more scrutiny. If it is illegal, obviously the correct ramifications should come down on him. If you think that he is a man of the common American and is going to fix much of draining the swamp when this is what he's done his whole life, you've been sadly mistaken. He also was tweeting out some of the most hypocritical things about Obama and not paying taxes. Let's see if I can find these. Here's the first one. So this was in 2012 when he was paying that 10-year stretch where he was paying zero taxes. I think this might have also been the year where he got that massive refund. Imagine being the type of person that's going to tweet this out knowing your tax situation. Half of Americans don't pay income tax despite crippling government debt. So what he's basically saying is the government needs money, but here you are not paying your taxes, and here he is not paying his taxes. Just imagine being the type of person who would tweet this out. Here is the other one, which is just extremely hypocritical. We can really, if this doesn't mean anything to anyone anymore, can we just cross out the word hypocrite from the dictionary? Can we just call Webster and be like, hey, we don't need the word hypocrite anymore because no one cares. Nobody cares. If this doesn't mean anything to you, what world are you living in? Barack Obama, who wants to raise all our taxes, only pays 20.5% on $790,000 salary. Do as I say, not as I do. Meanwhile, this was in 2012. Meanwhile, he's not paying his taxes. This is just, like I said, if it doesn't mean anything to you, I don't know what to say to you. You know, knowing all that and everything that with the information we have, and still trying to figure out who he owes that 420 million to, because it's very important. He does have a net worth in the billions, though. He was left 400 million in assets and is currently over 400 million in debt. And he outstanding wise in terms of total loans over $1 billion. That doesn't strike me as a very good businessman. I don't know about you. This, I'm sure more will come out over the next couple of weeks leading up to the election, as more people dig into the financial statements, as more people dig into the taxes, and who knows if, you know, the New York Times has more information. But if you look at this and you think that this is some sort of, you know, representation of what should be a president, and this is actually a good thing. Look, he's using the tax code to pay less in taxes, and this is honorable. You've completely lost the plot. You've completely lost the plot. We all take the standard deductions. We all take the deductions where we can, and we still all end up paying more than this. The tax code in this country is completely broken, and for a president, right? He's the president of the United States. He has a duty to this country that no one else has. And for him to be trying to weasel his way out of paying zero or damn near zero in taxes, when much of those taxes, collectively our taxes go to the betterment of society. Now, obviously, I'm going to hear it. I know there's things that the taxes go to that are stupid, or they waste money, or I get it. I know all that. But if we all did this, if taking this into a hypothetical, if we all didn't pay taxes, the society you live in would crumble. So taking it to a philosophical, hypothetical limits, it is immoral to think that you don't have to pay taxes. Because again, if we all did this, we wouldn't have a functioning government. We wouldn't have a functioning society. Plain and simple.